Baker Mayfield said that if he can manage the pain, he's going to play on Sunday. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credential member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you every Monday through Friday along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is to become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Injury updates and where the Bucs stand after losing 3 in a row and 4 out of their last 5. That is all coming up in a little bit. We're starting this one off with Baker Mayfield and his current injury situation. Baker did not participate in practice on Wednesday, but he did speak with the media following their walkthrough, which is somewhat odd considering injured players do not speak to the media. However, Baker told reporters that this injury is not like the one he suffered in Cleveland that led to his poor performance and eventually him being traded away to the Carolina Panthers. Instead, this is a pain management situation and not the amount of damage that he sustained previously. That injury in 2021 was a complete dislocation, a torn labrum, a cracked bone, and a partial tear of his rotator cuff. That is nothing close to what he is dealing with right now. Teddy Bridgewater did take the first team snaps in case Baker cannot play, but Baker also said that the team is viewing their remaining schedule all as must-win games, which isn't entirely factual. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's the mentality that they are apparently going into this final third stretch with. That means, according to Mayfield, if he can physically play, then he will. Now, I'm on the record already, and I'm going to continue to double down, triple down, quadruple down, whatever you want to call it. Baker should not play on Sunday. He absolutely should not. The Bucs do need a win. They do not need the win that badly. I'll say it that way. They do need to get back on track. A win would go a very long way in doing that, but at what cost? The potential loss of their starting quarterback for even more time, losing him against the Saints, the Falcons, or the Panthers, in those games that actually do matter and they actually do need to win if they're going to make the playoffs. This game against Arizona, it just isn't worth it. The best thing for the team is to have Baker under center down the stretch, and if there's any risk at all of him making the injury worse, which there is, all it takes is one hit, one sack, one awkward landing on his left side. It just isn't worth it. It is far more critical to have him in December and January than Thanksgiving weekend. Even if they lose to the Cardinals, it'll be better for the long haul if it means that Baker gets the rest that he needs and can can start to heal a little bit and can come back in a better spot than he's in right now. We know that Baker is the unquestioned leader on this team, and he's the kind of person that wants to be there for his teammates. He wants to put them on his back and lead them to victories. He wants to do whatever he can by any means necessary to win football games. But this is how you make something go from bad to worse. This is how you make a 2-week injury turn into a season-ending injury. And if that happens, kiss any playoff hopes, kiss any win streaks, kiss any momentum that they might build over these next 6 games goodbye. Because if Baker goes down, the entire team is going with him. Look, I know there's a lot of frustration built up within the fan base. I get it. I really, really do. This was a team that we were talking about being legitimate Super Bowl contenders throughout the offseason and even the first month and a half of the year. We talked about it on this show all offseason long, that this team could legitimately win a Super Bowl. This was a team that we talked about having the best offense in the league, the best receiving core in the league, a team loaded with young talent that could really improve on what they did last season and make some noise in the NFC playoffs. And now none of that has come to fruition. Absolutely none of it. None of that has panned out the way that we expected it to, and that's playing into Baker's mentality. I can almost guarantee it. Warranted or not, he's probably putting a lot of the blame on himself for the way things have transpired the last 6 weeks, and he's going to push himself to try and make up for that. That's just who he is. Like I said on the squad show, though, sometimes you have to protect players from themselves. You have to be the one that tells them that he can't go out there and play because it's just too risky. It's too soon, and the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Because guys like Baker, they will never say that they can't do it. They will never say that they're too hurt to play. They will never take themselves out because they feel like it's their responsibility to be there on the field with the rest of the team, trying to find a way to win. You absolutely cannot leave this decision in his hands. I don't care if it's just pain management. Someone has to step in and tell him no, and that he needs to take the week to rest, recover, whatever he needs to do, or things go from bad to absolute worst case scenario in a real quick hurry. Say what you will about the Cardinals and the way that they've lost games this year, they can get after the quarterback. 22 sacks on the season. They can bring some heat. Their defense is actually pretty good. We saw how different Baker was when he wasn't taking off and running the ball to escape trouble or to get that clutch first down or to extend a much-needed drive and fire up the rest of the team. He's not the same guy when he's not doing that. You think someone with a sprained AC joint that was in the amount of pain that he was in on Sunday Night Football for a national audience, you think somebody with that injury is going to be taking off and running? Absolutely not. It changes everything about the way that Baker Mayfield plays the game when his legs are no longer an option. You can't let him play in this one. It's a real bad idea. You can't just think about the first mile of a marathon. You have to think about all of the miles in a marathon. This is the first mile of that marathon to get back in the thick of things, get this team back to winning games, get things straightened out, and get on the right track. You're not going to get very far if you push too hard, too fast, and you wind up rolling your ankle and you can't finish. Let Teddy run this first mile. Then, after a mile, tag in Baker once he's a little closer to being healthy. He's not going to be 100% another game the rest of the season. He's just not. He has been beaten up. He's dealt with the oblique. He's dealt with a knee. He's dealt with an ankle. Now he's dealing with a sprained AC joint. Protect him from himself. And while he's not going to be 100%, a week of rest will definitely put him in a better spot than he is in right now today. Good news, bad news on the injury front. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it because it also helps you correct your form in real time and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We've talked about Baker's injury and the fact that he did not practice on Wednesday, so let's talk about who else wasn't able to go. Now, the early reports were that cornerback Benjamin Morrison was not practicing. He popped up on the Friday injury report with a hamstring injury, did not play against the Rams, but turns out he was limited. However, it does still sound like he will not play against the Cardinals, which is really unfortunate because this was one that I had circled after the draft. When Morrison went up against Marvin Harrison Jr., in the Notre Dame Ohio State game in 2023, he put on an absolute clinic. He shut Harrison down completely. I honestly think that this game was one where Morrison was going to start to get a little bit more confidence back because he started the season out pretty well. He did a great job against Nico Collins. He was thrown into the deep end against the Eagles, did a really good job there, but he has struggled the last couple of games that he has played. And if he doesn't pan out, I know I'm going to take a lot of grief for it because that was my dude in the draft. I was pounding the table. I was talking about him constantly on this show, but I know the talent is there. I know the intelligence is there, as are the ball skills, but he's got to stay healthy. This is way too much time away for a rookie that missed his final year of college and now cannot stay on the field in the NFL. This is the hardest position outside of quarterback to transition to from college to the NFL, and this is slowing down his development. It's going to be an absolute travesty if all of that talent goes to waste because he keeps getting hurt. As for somebody that was not out there, Anthony Nelson, dealing with a rib injury, did not participate on Wednesday. That's not great, but Haason Reddick was back in a limited capacity and is in play for the weekend. This would be a big boost for the Bucs defense. Obviously, it would deepen their edge rush rotation. There's been very little said about Reddick and the injuries that he sustained, and while his stats don't jump off the page, the Bucs pass rush is overall much better as a team when he is on the field compared to when he isn't. So that is some really positive news. Other positive news, Jamel Dean returned in a limited capacity. He's dealing with a hip injury, obviously missed last week's game against the Rams after leaving the Bills game very early on with that hip injury. Having him back out there will give the secondary a boost. And then there's Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving was a full participant. All signs point to his return on Sunday. There were reports about it over the weekend, and then Bucky spoke to the media on Wednesday when, again, it's usually a solid indicator that someone is going to play after missing some time when they speak to the media. But Bucky opened up a little bit about dealing with that injury, missing all those games, and he was very forthcoming. He was very honest that it affected him. Bucky told the media, quote, "It's tough, man. First time being hurt. When I step on that field, like I always say, I don't take this game for granted. I love what I do every day. I love my teammates. And when I go out there, I play and I show them that each and every time I get the ball, I'm trying to make plays and make things happen for this organization and this football team and help them in any type of fashion to win football games. When God takes something away from you, he's telling you to get closer to him and lean on him. Being able to be down and have something taken away from you, everything was all right because I had the right people around me," end quote. I talked last week during I believe it was the Friday Live, about the rumors that were kind of swirling and circulating there about Bucky Irving. It was all started by Florio. Rondé Barber had mentioned some things. Other people started to chime in. But I said my piece about this being about more than football. and the importance of making sure that loved ones in your life know that you're there for them and you care about them, because you never know the internal struggles that they're dealing with. Bucky obviously was dealing with some internal struggles, and I think he found the right support system, whether that's through his faith, through the positive influences that he has surrounded himself with. I think he came out on the other side a stronger and more positive person, which is all you can ask for when you're facing adversity, especially at that young of an age. We've all faced adversity to some degree. It may not be an injury that takes you away from your job. It may be, financial issues. It might be, losing a friend because of an argument, or dealing with the loss of a loved one who passed away, any of those things. Maybe we got through it okay. Maybe we made things worse by thinking we could do it on our own instead of reaching out. No matter what the situation or the way that you handled it, I promise that you learned from it and you were able to apply that lesson and that knowledge to another bit of adversity that you faced down the road. And I think that's what Bucky has done here. It was his first time ever getting hurt playing football. The first time that he ever had to be taken away from his team for something out of his control. He didn't know how to handle it. Now he's on the other side. He's getting ready to play again. He got through it. He made it back to where he wants to be, and he's going to know that next time he's going to be able to do it again. And I think that's really the positive message that you have to take away from all of this, is that he faced something he's never faced. He didn't know how to get through it. He found his path. And now the next time something like this pops up, hopefully it doesn't, knock on wood, but he's going to know how to handle it much, much better. And I think that's going to go a long way for the mental aspect of his life, rather than, kind of going to a dark place again. Couple of Cardinals names to keep an eye on throughout the week. Offensive linemen Kelvin Beachum and Will Hernandez were both held out of practice due to injury. Josh Sweat is dealing with an eye injury. He didn't practice. Running back Amari DeMarcado is dealing with an ankle injury. He didn't practice. Now, Trey Benson was limited, but he's still on the IR. He has not been activated off of injured reserve yet, but that is something that you are going to want to keep your eyes and ears open for, because that could really, really help the Cardinals in this game if Trey Benson is able to return. As I mentioned a little bit ago, was really looking forward to the potential rematch between Morrison and Marvin Harrison Jr. Looks like we'll have half of that. Marvin Harrison Jr. was back in a limited capacity at practice on Wednesday. He had surgery 2 weeks ago for appendicitis. Looks like he is potentially in play for this game. We will hear more about that situation on Crossover Thursday tomorrow. Make sure you're going to tune in for that. That's right, a Thanksgiving edition of Crossover Thursday. But coming up next, we are going to talk about where the Bucs stand as of right now following this, mid-season lull. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's the one making that late push. The defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder are the favorites to win the NBA Finals at plus 155, followed by the Denver Nuggets at plus 700, the Cleveland Cavaliers at plus 950, and the Houston Rockets at plus 1100. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers are 3-point home favorites over the Cardinals this week, with an over-under of 44.5, and Emeka Egbuka has dropped to plus 230 to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year, now trailing the new favorite, Teteroa McMillan. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Wrapping things up here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, and there may be some of you out there that believe, as I do, that the Bucs can get things back on track when they're at their best. They can hang with just about anyone in not just the NFC, but the NFL. There may be some of you out there that believe they can hang with just about anyone, but that all three phases are never at their best at the same time, so it'll just be a letdown. Why bother getting your hopes up? Some of you may be in a spot now where you wish they would just shut down Baker for the rest of the season, not worry about bringing back Mike Evans or Jalen McMillan or Kalijah Kancey, lose games, fire bowls, and get a better draft pick. I'm here to tell you they are still going to make the playoffs. Now, what they do in the playoffs is to be determined, but I think if you have Evans and McMillan back, along with the rest of your weapons, plus you get Ben Bredeson back, your offense can overcome a lot of defensive deficiencies. At the same time, you're looking at getting Kalijah Kancey back, and that's going to provide a really big boost. So I'm still not in the camp that they'll make it and for sure go one and done. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. That said, the Bucs still have an 80% chance to make the playoffs, at least as of Monday morning. They had an 80% chance. I could not find the updated statistics, but Greg Allman had tweeted it out that they were at 83% chance to make the playoffs going into Sunday night, and they only dropped to 80%. Now, that also didn't account for Carolina losing to the 49ers, so that likely went back up. Look, even if Carolina wins against the Rams this week and they beat the Seahawks later on down the road, they cannot get in without beating the Bucs. All the Bucs have to do is win their divisional games. I did the playoff scenarios here. They can lose to the Cardinals and lose to the Dolphins, and it won't matter at all. If the Bucs just beat the remaining teams on their schedule from the NFC South, they win the division at 10-7 and they host a playoff game. Evan mentioned it yesterday. You don't need to worry about seeding anymore. The shot at the 1 seed is gone. You can't get the 2 seed. Odds for the 3 seed aren't great. Just get in. Yeah, the 4 seed means that you're playing that god-awful money grab of a Monday night primetime wildcard game that puts you at a severe disadvantage if you move on to the divisional round, but all you need is a ticket to get in. From there, anything can happen. Baker's first year in Tampa, they won that Monday night playoff game, so we know he's capable of doing that. And I said a million times on this show, it's rare that it's actually the best team in the NFL that wins the Super Bowl. It's always the team that's playing their best football going into and throughout the playoffs. Remember, the Bucs weren't the best team in the NFL in 2020. They were just the best team over that stretch. They were the hottest team in the NFL. They came out of a bye week. They won, 4 or 5 straight or whatever it was. Then they go on a generational, road playoff run to play a Super Bowl in their home stadium against a team that beat the brakes off of them earlier in the year, and they beat the brakes off of them in the Super Bowl. It's not always the best team. It is always the team that's playing the best at the time. The Bucs don't need to look like world beaters right now. What they need to do is spend the next 6 weeks figuring out how to get things fixed on the defensive side of the ball. They need to spend the next 6 weeks getting guys back from injury and working them in so that when the playoffs start, they aren't still trying to get their legs under them. That the offense is going to have time to adjust to this influx of players when you're adding Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan to the receiving core that already has Godwin trying to work his way back in, has Ibuka, has Tez Johnson, has Sterling Shepard. You want all those guys clicking by the time January rolls around. That's all you focus on right now. Beat the Saints, beat the Falcons, beat the Panthers twice. You can even lose to the Falcons on Thursday night. You don't want to. I don't want to see that at all. The last thing I want to do is stay up for another primetime game that the Buccaneers lose. But the Bucs could lose that game, go 3-3 the rest of the way, and still get in over the Panthers. All you have to do is win the NFC South matchups. It's going 2-0 against the Panthers that's going to be the hard part. And again, this scenario is one that I did where the Panthers win out except for the Bucs games. I don't think they're beating the Rams or the Seahawks, but I'm showing you that the Bucs are still very much in the driver's seat for the NFC South crown and a trip to the postseason. Handle your own business. You control your own destiny, so just take care of it. Don't wait and rely on other teams to help you out like you had to last year. The Bucs needed a ton of help last year. They had to win, what was it, 6 of their last 7 or 5 of their last 6 or whatever the case was. They had one game that they could afford to lose while also needing Atlanta to lose games. That's exactly what happened. They got in, and thanks for a ton of help. This time, you don't have to rely on other teams beating the Panthers. You just have to go out and beat the Panthers. That's it. It's really, really simple. And I know, again, a lot of you are throwing up your arms and, oh, why bother making the playoffs? They're just going to be one and done anyway. Maybe they will, but maybe they won't. Truly. Maybe they won't. That's why they play the game. We don't know. I mean, would I have a ton of confidence going into a game against the Seahawks? Not exactly. Even though the Bucs already beat them earlier this year, could be another shootout. The Bucs would have plenty of offensive weapons to be able to handle that shootout. But do they have the health? What would Baker look like at that point? Or would they have to rely on Teddy? That's a toss-up. Could be the Packers. Now, I would actually be more confident facing the Packers than I would the Seahawks. The Packers don't scare me at all. Their defense is good, but it's not elite. Yeah, they have Micah Parsons, and he's amazing. But that defense has been up and down and all over the place. Their offense is a hot mess. I would be a little more confident in that matchup than I would be in the Seahawks matchup. I would be more confident facing the Bears. It's real possible that Detroit jumps the Bears, wins the division. The Bears drop down to a wild card. If they have the best record of the wild card teams, well, they're the ones traveling to Tampa. I'll take Baker over Caleb Williams. I'll take the Bucs pass catchers over the Bears pass catchers. I'll take the Bucs running backs over the Bears running backs. So it'll be on the defense. Bears defense is a little more consistent, but I would trust the Bucs offense to find a way to get the job done. So to say that it won't matter because they'll go one and done, you don't know. You got to wait and see what the matchup is. There are hundreds of different scenarios right now. But the one thing we do know is that it's not going to be the Bucs looking for someone to bail them out. The Bucs control their own destiny. The Bucs are going to win their way into the postseason. And barring a monumental collapse that some may be wishing for, they're going to win the division yet again. And some people may be hoping for that monumental collapse so that it'll lead to the firing of Todd Bowles. But again, I'll say, be careful what you wish for. Evan pointed it out on yesterday's show. I mentioned it on the Sunday Live. You fired John Gruden. That led to Raheem Morris, Greg Schiano, Lovie Smith, Dirk Cutter, and a decade of sadness and dysfunction and just crap football. So for every Ben Johnson, for every Sean McVay, there's a Greg Schiano. There's a Raheem Morris. There's a Mike McDaniel. There's an Aaron Glenn. That's all I'm trying to say. That's going to do it for this episode. Please check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs, Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs. In both of those spots, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. If you want to support the show, but you don't want to be an insider, it's real simple. Like this episode on YouTube, leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.